The story begins at an archery range. Many students have gathered to watch, a girl admired by everyone for her great skill. Among them is our protagonist, Shiroka Mamoru, a first-year student whose eyes light up with excitement the moment he spots her. With calm precision, she draws her bow, releases the arrow, and it strikes the center of the target, flawless. Her name is Yumizuka Iroha, also a first-year at Amagahara High School. The crowd reacts in awe, amazed by the flawless shot. Mamoru watches closely, impressed by the accuracy of every single step she takes before firing the arrow. Students around him whisper to each other, praising both her beauty and her talent. They call her the Bow Princess of Amaku. Their admiration grows louder, and soon their chatter fills the range, breaking the quiet atmosphere of the moment. Iroha notices and approaches with a serious expression, reminding them to stay quiet during their visit to the dojo. They apologize and leave. The next day at school, Mamoru can't stop thinking about Yumizuka-san, how strict and composed she appears, yet he senses there's more to her than that. He recalls their first meeting when she introduced herself and surprised him by remembering his name. He realizes that she is not only strict but also considerate toward others. To him, she represents the qualities of an ideal Japanese woman, and it is this aura that made him fall for her. Yet he also understands that many others see her the same way, and that is something he cannot change. Later that day, Mamoru rushes to the archery dojo, afraid that he might have missed practice. To his surprise, Yumizuka is still there, standing alone with her bow in hand. He pauses, taken aback by her dedication. Even after practice has ended and everyone else has left, she continues training with calm determination. His curiosity pulls him closer. Although he knows that visiting hours are over and that he should not disturb her, he cannot resist taking a quiet look at her steady, unshaken form. Inside the dojo, Yumizuka moves with careful precision. She follows the proper archery sequence step by step. Each motion reflects the discipline of the 8 stages of shooting, the foundation required for every perfect arrow. Mamoru watches silently, captivated by her focus, her form, and her grace. Then suddenly, the silence of the dojo is broken. A cheerful ringtone echoes loudly. Mamoru blinks in surprise and realizes it is coming from Yumizuka's bag. For a moment, the playful sound clashes with the serious and disciplined image she projects. He is startled by this unexpected glimpse into her private side. But Yumizuka does not let the distraction shake her. Even as the ringtone plays, she continues practicing with complete concentration. Mamoru stares in disbelief at her ability to ignore it. Then the phone rings again, and this time he recognizes the tune. It is the theme song from Yuri Pure, a cheerful anime show made for little girls. The realization slips from his lips before he can stop himself. He hopes she has not heard, but Yumizuka clearly did. Still, she goes on with mechanical precision, every move perfectly calculated. To Mamoru, it feels almost unnatural, as though she is moving like a robot. But then, without warning, she loses her footing. Mamoru's heart jumps in alarm, but the protective fences of the dojo prevent her from injury. What shocks him even more is how she chooses to recover. Instead of simply standing back up, she slides forward and bows deeply to the ground, in a dramatic dojeza. She then approaches Mamoru with grave seriousness. Speaking with formal dignity, she apologizes as the daughter of the Yumizuka clan. She says she has committed an unacceptable mistake. Her words are heavy with the weight of family honor, and she even declares that the only way to atone would be to go as far as taking her own life. Mamoru freezes, horrified at her words, and desperately hopes she does not mean it. Later, the two of them move to the stairs, where the heavy mood slowly eases. Mamoru gathers his courage and tells her what he has noticed. Her strength crumbles when she cannot follow a strict, step-by-step procedure. Yumizuka listens, and with quiet regret, she admits he is right. She has repeated the same drills and procedures hundreds of thousands of times, trained endlessly under strict discipline. Because of this, when her procedure is broken, she feels weak, unstable, and unable to control herself. Mamoru feels guilty. He believes that his presence may have distracted her, but Yumizuka shakes her head and insists the fault is hers alone. She blames herself for forgetting to silence her phone, and even more, for choosing such an embarrassing ringtone. To her, both mistakes are unworthy of someone who has dedicated her body and spirit to martial discipline. Her tone grows heavier as she continues. She confesses that by staying the honor of the Yumizuka name, she may no longer remain at this school. Her father is a strict man, and she is certain he would demand that she transfer out. The thought makes Mamoru uneasy and upset. He cannot imagine her leaving because of this small mistake. With determination, he swears that he will protect her secret. He vows never to let anyone know about this moment of weakness. Yumizuka listens quietly. Though there is sadness in her eyes, she seems relieved. Still, she feels guilty for troubling him. Mamoru reassures her, saying that classmates should help each other. But deep inside, he knows his feelings go further than simple duty. He wants to support her not just as a classmate, but because of something stronger, his own growing affection for her. Finally, Mamoru gathers the courage to confess his feelings, but Yumizuka's strict devotion to procedure shows itself once again. For her, even something like a confession must follow the proper order. She explains that they should not rush ahead but should start properly as friends first, before moving to anything more. Mamoru is left stunned. His heartfelt admission has not been fully accepted, but neither has it been rejected. For now, the two of them take their first step forward, a step that begins with friendship. The next day at the archery range, Yumizuka is once again at the quiet dojo, focused on her practice. Shiroka stands at a distance, watching her silently. He thinks about how impressive she looks while drawing her bow. It's no surprise she earned the title of the Bow Princess of Amiku. Yet even someone as composed as Yumizuka falters when her routine is disrupted. As the daughter of a respected archery family, such a weakness would be a serious concern if others were to discover it. Shiroka recalls the promise he made to her to guard this secret. He begins to wonder if something might be wrong with himself, even questioning his own condition. Later, during English class, Yumizuka is reading a poem aloud. Some classmates comment on her pronunciation, but she stays focused and keeps reading clearly. Watching her, Shiroka thinks about how she appears to be a strong athlete, yet is also deeply committed to her studies. He realizes she must prepare thoroughly, reviewing pronunciation, grammar, and translations with the same seriousness she applies to archery. To him, her reading sounds refined, almost artistic. The teacher praises her and asks her to read further, encouraging the class to pay attention. Pressure builds on her, but she keeps reading even as nervousness begins to show. Shiroka notices her unease. He understands that she is struggling because the passage she is asked to read is outside what she had prepared. Sitting in the back, he realizes no one else has noticed. When the teacher instructs her to skip ahead to the climax of the text, her anxiety increases. Our lad sees her reaching her limit and quickly raises his hand to intervene. When the teacher asks what he wants, Shiroka hesitates, unable to come up with a reason. Then he explains that she had been reading smoothly and that it might be better for her to continue normally instead of jumping ahead. The teacher points out that there isn't enough time to cover the entire passage. Shiroka tries to stop him, but his words are ignored as the teacher instructs Yumizuka to continue reading. She grows unsettled, her voice faltering as she continues. Shiroka calls out to her, urging her to stay composed. Confused, she mutters that, as the daughter of the Yumizuka family, it's humiliating to be seen like this. Shiroka realizes she is on the verge of breaking down in front of everyone. He feels regret, believing he has failed to protect her despite his promise. Yumizuka keeps reading, saying she wasn't capable enough and has allowed her weakness to be seen. Shiroka apologizes inwardly, frustrated by his own helplessness. As the story reaches its end, even the teacher becomes moved to tears. Shiroka notices this and reflects that Yumizuka understands the heart of the story completely, just as he once did when he first read it. He feels that choosing this text was the right decision. Two classmates whispered to each other, impressed that Yumizuka can read in English while also understanding it deeply enough to be affected by the story. They praise her intelligence and compassion. Hearing this, Shiroka reacts with irritation. He raises his voice, confused that the situation has somehow turned out positively. At the end of class, the teacher tells everyone their goal should be to read English with the same understanding as Yumizuka. Shiroka thinks her ability to recover is remarkable. After class, Shiroka calls out to her and apologizes for not supporting her. She turns back and says his encouragement still helped, even though she hadn't practiced enough. She thanks him for keeping his promise. Shiroka finds her scary, as she would have managed on her own, using Yumizuka recovery. The next day in class, Shiroka walks over to Yumizuka and hands her the class diary. She accepts it politely and tells him she will turn it in once she finishes writing. Shiroka responds casually before turning to leave. As he does, Nakayama places a hand firmly on his shoulder, confronting him with irritation and questioning when he became so close to Yumizuka. Shiroka quickly explains that it is nothing more than part of the routine class duty. He goes over the events in his mind. When he approached Yumizuka to hand her the class diary, he reminded himself it was simply part of his duty. Still, compared to before, it feels like a big step forward, since he has come to know a hidden side of Yumizuka. Even though only a few incidents have taken place since then, it has brought them somewhat closer. At that moment, the teacher enters the room and asks who is responsible for the day's duty. He points toward a stack of documents and instructs both of them to return them to the data room, explaining that the load is too much for one person. He agrees, so he and Yumizuka carries the books together. Walking beside her, Shiroka feels he might finally be able to speak with her naturally, yet the situation makes him uneasy, unsure of what to say. Yumizuka glances at him and thanks him for carrying so much. He replies that it is nothing. As they continue, Shiroka's thoughts drift. In her archery uniform, Yumizuka stands tall and dignified, but in her school uniform beside him, she seems small and slender. He notices details about her he hadn't before, seeing her differently without her bow. Yumizuka calls his name, snapping him out of his thoughts, and urges him to hurry as her club activities are about to start. Shiroka nods, and they rush to the data room. Inside, he is surprised by the room's size and wonders where to place the documents. Yumizuka points to a high shelf. He tries to reach it but can't, and she teases that even his height isn't enough. He suggests finding a ladder, but there's none around, likely borrowed. Yumizuka insists they can't search for it. She can't be late for her club. Shiroka offers to handle the problem himself, but Yumizuka rejects that as well, explaining that leaving a task unfinished is unacceptable for someone devoted to martial discipline. Unsure, Shiroka asks what they should do, and Yumizuka replies that she has an idea. She climbs onto Shiroka's shoulders to place the books on the shelf. He stands stiffly, uncertain if this is a good solution. As she directs him to adjust slightly to the side, her thighs press against his face while she steadies herself. Embarrassed, he notices her focus is entirely on the task above, her gaze sharp and unwavering, as if she were practicing archery. He realizes she pays no attention to anything else once she sets her aim. He worries that if anyone sees him like this, it could cause trouble for her. Gathering himself, he calls out to her hesitantly. When Yumizuka looks down, he asks if she could loosen her legs a little. Hearing his words, Yumizuka becomes flustered. Shiroka notices the embarrassed look on her face and realizes she has only just understood the situation. She quickly apologizes, mentioning her family name with unease. Shiroka thinks to himself that he can already see what will happen next. As Yumizuka leans forward to apologize, her chest presses against his face, causing him to lose balance. Both of them fall to the ground together. Startled, Yumizuka asks if he is all right, then hurriedly tells him to close his eyes. Shiroka, caught in the moment, feels overwhelmed but tries to steady himself. In his mind, he admits that the situation is intense, while at the same time realizing he has uncovered yet another side of Yumizuka. Struggling, he asks her to release his head. The scene shifts to the cleaning time for the day. An announcement echoes through the hall, calling everyone to move to their assigned cleaning areas. Shiroka heads out with Yumizuka to take the trash. On the way, she apologizes for having him accompany her, while Shiroka responds that it is nothing. Deep inside, he feels more than satisfied, happy at the thought of spending time alone with her. He considers it progress, believing she might be becoming more comfortable around him. Yumizuka, however, sees it differently. She believes she must follow him, or else something unexpected might happen again. Shiroka interprets this as a sign of trust, realizing how far things have come compared to when he used to watch her quietly from a distance. They arrive at the garbage area behind the school, where a group of classmates is sitting around, chatting and laughing. Shiroka notices and quietly warns Yumizuka not to attract their attention. She replies with calm confidence, telling him not to worry. One of the boys tosses a juice can into the wrong trash bin. Yumizuka, frowning, picks it up and firmly tells them to sort their garbage properly. Shiroka tries to stop her, but she doesn't back down. One of the boys snaps at her angrily, his words crude and threatening. Another joins in, mocking her. Before things escalate further, Yumizuka reacts swiftly and strikes back, stunning them. Shiroka quickly asks if she is all right, but the boys suddenly realize who she is. Recognizing her as Yumizuka Iroha, the archer of Amiku, they panic and retreat. Shiroka is struck with admiration. She didn't falter even in front of delinquents. He voices his amazement, praising her beyond just her archery skills. Yumizuka blushes, embarrassed by his words. Shiroka notices a mistake. He has thrown their class's burnable trash into the plastic bin. Realizing it, Yumizuka bows deeply and apologizes with visible shame. Tsuruoka, astonished, watches her slide into a deep bow, overwhelmed at the sight. For the daughter of the Yumizuka family to lower herself in such a way leaves him at a loss for how to respond. Before he can gather his thoughts, voices suddenly approach from nearby. A few boys are shouting excitedly, recognizing Yumizuka by name. They talk about being fans and wanting her autograph. Hearing this, Tsuruoka grows tense. He worries that if more people see Yumizuka in this situation, it could affect her standing at school. Acting quickly, Tsuruoka grabs a garbage drum and overturns it onto her, hiding her from sight. He apologizes under his breath even as he does it. The boys arrive at the spot, but after looking around, find no sign of her. Confused, they comment that she had been there just moments ago before leaving the area. When they are gone, Tsuruoka exhales in relief and removes the drum from over her. Yumizuka immediately becomes angry, glaring at him for what he did. He apologizes for days, explaining that he had no other option at the time. One day at school, a beautiful and charming girl enters the classroom, looking for Yumizuka Iroha. Tsuruoka informs Yumizuka as he sees her. She turns away, saying it's almost time for her club activates. Meanwhile, classmates whisper among themselves, commenting on Tsuruoka's apparent luck. One explains that the girl is Yagami, known as the Queen of Class 1, nicknamed Eri-sama. She's admired as a popular and attractive student, said to rival even Yumizuka among the first years. Tsuruoka reflects that he's never paid attention to anyone but Yumizuka and had been unaware of Yagami's reputation. Yagami walks up to Yumizuka and addresses her directly, drawing even more attention. The moment becomes a spectacle. A silent contest between the two most admired girls of the year, described by some as a clash between East and West. Tsuruoka notices the growing crowd, including students from other classes who gather out of curiosity. The students discuss Yagami's background, her nickname, her wealth, the retainers who follow her everywhere, and the way she brings other popular students into her circle. Tsuruoka watches carefully, thinking Yumizuka must not be drawn into Yagami's faction. Despite the attention, Yumizuka remains composed. She says she would like to talk more but needs to leave for club activities and suggests meeting another time. Her classmates praise her as the boat princess of Amiku, noting how she values archery above all else. Yagami mentions that she has some experience in archery herself and is aware of Yumizuka's skill, subtly trying to match her reputation. Nakayama quietly observes that Yagami seems to be using the moment to prove superiority, a thought Tsuruoka also understands. Yagami continues, claiming she watched many archery matches during the last Olympics. However, her statement is flawed. The event she references was held in the southern hemisphere during winter. Tsuruoka notices the inconsistency, but hesitates to expose her in front of everyone. Meanwhile, the classmates remain impressed by Yagami's composure. Our lad points out her mistake by typing a message on his phone. She reads it, then ends the conversation by announcing it's time for her afternoon tea and leaves. Yumizuka departs quietly, focused on her club. After school, Tsuruoka walks toward the archery field when Yagami calls out to him. She questions his intentions, frustrated that he noticed her earlier slip but didn't call her out. Tsuruoka realizes she had been fabricating her returnee status, mixed heritage, and wealthy background. Yagami admits that her claim of being from Hawaii in Tottori Prefecture was a joke meant to make her seem lively. Her classmates misunderstood, assuming her name implied mixed heritage and spreading rumors about yachts, beaches, and a lavish lifestyle until she became known as the Queen. She explains that after Yumizuka arrived, athletic, smart, and skilled in archery, everyone expected a rivalry. Hoping to match her, Yagami spent 2 weeks practicing archery but couldn't catch up. She confronts Tsuruoka, accusing him of watching Yumizuka too closely, and asks whether he likes her, upset that he saw through her lies. Tsuruoka notices bandages on her fingers, signs of archery blisters, and realizes her efforts weren't for show. He reassures her that he won't tell anyone. Everyone has things they want to keep private, he says, and such secrets are part of who a person is. Yagami falls silent, recognizing that Tsuruoka's decision to protect her shows thoughtfulness and self-control. She admits she had underestimated him, now realizing he's more impressive than she thought. As Tsuruoka turns to leave, Yagami insists he accept a date as thanks for keeping her secret. She calls it a gift and urges him to agree. He is left bewildered by her boldness. Just then, Yumizuka arrives. She notes that he was taking a long time and says she got worried. Without hesitation, she takes his hand, reminding him of his promise to visit the archery club that day. Shiroka is shocked to find himself holding Yumizuka's hand. Watching the scene, Yagami notes that even someone like Yumizuka is capable of jealousy. She finds it fascinating and resolves to have a proper match with her, determined to assert herself in love. Shiroka, caught between the two girls, feels the tension. Yumizuka's quiet seriousness stands in contrast to Yagami's boldness and charm. The next day in home economics class, the teacher writes all the ingredients on the board and explains that for today's cooking practice, they will be making curry. Since everyone has already made it in middle school, she encourages them to add their own flavors this time. She also mentions that grades will be based on taste, urging them to put forth their best effort. Because students are seated in pairs, they'll be cooking and sharing the meal together, adding a sense of collaboration to the lesson. Yumizuka ties her apron carefully and looks toward Shiruko, signaling that they should do their best, causing him to blush. A classmate comments that she seems very enthusiastic, while another notes that she always does things perfectly. Her cooking must be amazing too. Observing her, Shiruko thinks she'll surely make delicious curry. He recalls her strict family background, which explains her discipline and precise care in everything she does. He can't help but admire how seriously she approaches even the smallest tasks. While Shiruko prepares ingredients, Nakaneyama suddenly places a hand on his shoulder, pulling him closer with a sharp glare. He complains that Shiruko gets to eat Yumizuka's handmade food while he has to cook and eat alone as his partner is absent. Shocked, Shiruko sees Nakaneyama silently begging for some of Yumizuka's curry. Caught off guard, he reluctantly agrees, feeling both amused and exasperated, knowing he can't fully refuse. Later, Yumizuka gestures that it's fine to add chocolate as a secret ingredient, believing it will deepen the flavor. Shiruko agrees, noticing how serious and thoughtful she is about her cooking. Watching her chop vegetables, he's struck by her skill. Her movements are precise and confident, evidence of experience and disciplined training. Each slice seems effortless, though he knows it comes from years of practice. When he tries peeling on his own, he struggles. His hands aren't used to handling a knife. Yumizuka steps in and shows him the correct way to hold the knife while peeling a carrot. He begins to feel like they're truly working as a pair. A quiet joy grows inside him. Immersed in the task, Shiruoka continues cooking with growing energy, enjoying the quiet teamwork between them. Suddenly, Yumizuka reacts sharply. She points out that the vegetables should have been fried before simmering. Skipping that step would affect both flavor and texture. While the curry might still be edible, she insists it wouldn't meet the standards expected of someone from the Yumizuka family. As she speaks, she notices the vegetables have overcooked while she was distracted. Internally, she admits that making such a mistake is rare for her, a small but unusual lapse in her usual precision. Concerned, Shiroka checks on her, but she snaps back, pointing to a ruined potato and insisting nothing is wrong. Her tense reaction reveals both her perfectionism and her reluctance to show weakness. Refocusing, Shiroka watches her finely chopped mushrooms with practiced ease. Her movements are smooth and controlled, but he also notices she's added a large amount of chocolate. He starts to worry the flavor may end up too strong. Eventually, the curry looks off. Both of them stare at it in silence. To their surprise, however, their classmates gather around and comment that it looks like expensive, restaurant-quality curry, dark and smooth, with no visible ingredients. Shiroka feels a wave of relief, for now the dish's appearance hides its flaws. As they plate the curry, Shiroka grows anxious. He knows what's really in it, vegetables and a lot of chocolate, and wonders how they'll keep up the illusion. Just then, Sensei suggests everyone exchange dishes and score each other's cooking. Yumizuka stiffens, clearly worried. If anyone tastes it, her family's reputation could take a hit. Sensing her unease, Shiroka tries to reassure her. He decides to take the blame himself, ready to claim he accidentally mixed up the curry cubes with chocolate. Yumizuka looks at him in surprise. His calmness steadies her, if only for a moment. At that moment, Nakaneyama approaches from the next table, eager to taste Yumizuka's curry. He reminds Shiroka they're neighbors, and without hesitation, scoops a spoonful. Both Shiroka and Yumizuka try to stop him, but he manages to take a bite. As soon as he tastes it, he thinks there's no way Yumizuka's cooking could be bad, yet the flavor overwhelms him. The taste is unpleasant, but he convinces himself the fault lies in his own lack of refinement. Determined not to upset her, he praises the dish out loud, giving it a perfect score and pretending it's exceptional. Internally, he decides he won't let her feel embarrassed or doubt herself. Yumizuka and Tsuruoka glance at Nakanoyama's delicious curry. Though Tsuruoka feels a twinge of guilt, he's relieved. He managed to protect Yumizuka's pride. One day, on his way to school, Tsuruoka reflects that the archery club has no practice today. He feels relieved, finally, a break from his usual routine. At the same time, he can't help but feel slightly disappointed, knowing he won't get to see Yumizuka as he had hoped. As he walks, he spots a familiar figure ahead. After focusing for a moment, he realizes it's Yumizuka. This confirms there are truly no club activities today. It's also the first time he's seen her outside of school, and he gets nervous. He watches the way she moves. No matter how closely he observes, Yumizuka always carries herself with a quiet nobility and grace. She impresses him deeply, leaving him with a sense of admiration and awe. He thinks to himself that people who train in martial arts really are different. Just watching her fills him with quiet inspiration. He doesn't know exactly where she lives but assumes it must be nearby. He recalls a large dojo in the area and guesses she might be heading there. If that's the case, the road ahead would naturally take her in that direction. But she suddenly stops. Tsuruoka wonders if that might be her home. The road ahead is blocked, so she changes her route. From a distance, Tsuruoka notes that she usually follows the same road every day, but today her routine is disrupted. He believes that even if she takes a detour, she'll eventually return to the main road, but something feels off. He's certain she's heading the wrong way. His instincts stir with unease. A sense of anxiety builds. If he doesn't stop her, something might go wrong. But Yumizuka walks quickly, as expected of someone active in a sports club. Once again, Tsuruoka finds himself just watching from the sidelines. Remembering the past, he wonders how many times he has failed to step in when it mattered. He questions whether he's ever truly protected her at all. Suddenly, as she hurries ahead, he grabs her hand without thinking. The moment he does, regret floods him. It looks like he's been following her, and that thought alone sends his heart racing. Panic sets in. He releases her hand, apologizing silently in his mind, scrambling for a reason to justify his actions. His thoughts spiral into confusion, messy and unspoken. He wants to say he's glad she's safe, but the words won't come. To his surprise, Yumizuka gently takes his hand. Tsuruoka is stunned. She reminds him of when holding hands brought her comfort before. Her quiet presence reassures him. There's no need to panic. Through that small touch, she encourages him to speak, to explain everything from the beginning. Still holding hands, the two walk slowly together. Tsuruoka begins recounting how he first saw her that morning, believing they have a lot in common. At the school pool, Nakanoyama complains to Tsuruoka about having to clean it, calling the task bothersome because of how dirty it is. Tsuruoka replies that this duty is always given to the freshmen every year, so it's nothing unusual. Nakanoyama then remarks that, surprisingly, it's starting to feel a little less troublesome than he first thought. Nearby, Yumizuka leans forward slightly, and in that moment, the swimsuit underneath her shirt becomes partly visible. Tsuruoka notices and realizes she's wearing a full suit under her clothes. Curiosity stirs in him, but he quickly decides there's no way he can look any closer without being obvious. Behind him, Nakanoyama continues to grumble, muttering about the pool and the work. Tsuruoka is lost in thought when Yagami suddenly calls his name. Turning toward her voice, he hears her say she came to give him an early start on summer. Surprised, he asks why she's even there. She explains that both Class 1 and Class 3 are responsible for cleaning the pool. Tsuruoka reflects on Nagami Eri, known as the Queen of Class 1. Many students believe she's a half-Japanese returnee, but in truth, none of that is real. She simply maintains the misunderstanding by always acting as if she's worldly and knowledgeable. Since Tsuruoka saw through her facade, she's taken a peculiar interest in him. Yagami steps closer and lowers the neck of her shirt slightly. Confused, Tsuruoka asks why she isn't wearing the required school swimsuit. She answers that she bought a brand new one for the summer and insists it's fine because he's the only one she wants to show it to. Tsuruoka replies that this isn't the real issue at all. From behind, voices rise, classmates questioning why she's standing so close and calling out to her. He senses their hostility immediately. Cleaning finally begins, and everyone gets to work. Two boys fool around until one of the girls scolds them. Yumizuka steps forward, ordering them to take the task seriously. They quickly apologize, then whisper about her strong presence and serious tone. As they clean, they agree she's right. If the dirt on both sides of the pool isn't swept toward the center drain, it'll just flow back, making more work for everyone. Tsuruoka watches her and wonders if her irritation stems not just from annoyance, but also concern that the routine will be disrupted. Just then, Yagami calls out loudly, warning that moss and algae can be dangerously slippery once the water is fully drained. Our boy praised her insight, joking that she must have a pool at home. She casually mentioned she had a small goldfish pond as a child. Seizing on her words, two boys declare Yagami the class expert and suggest she should lead. They rush off with their brushes, eager to outdo Class 3. In doing so, they trample through Yumizuka's carefully clean lane, leaving a mess behind. Yumizuka struggles to hold back her frustration, and Tsuruoka sees her effort to remain composed. He decides he can't let her vulnerability show in front of the others and resolves to shift the attention away from her. In his mind, the only person who could outshine Yumizuka at that moment is Yagami. Without hesitation, he redirects attention to her bikini. A crowd forms around her, and the students begin praising how well the swimsuit suits her. Tsuruoka thinks to himself that this is exactly what he expected from her. Turning back to Yumizuka, he reminds himself to stay calm and starts moving toward her. Just then, his foot slips and he stumbles forward, his face pressing accidentally against her. Flustered and embarrassed, he quickly apologizes. Thanks to Yagami, no one noticed what happened. Meanwhile, Yagami mumbles that doing something like that in public is rather bold and that he's wilder than she imagined. In class, a girl asks Yumizuka if she will be home alone over the weekend. Yumizuka confirms that she'll be home alone for the weekend. She explains that her father, an instructor, is traveling to give a demonstration, and both her mother and their caretaker are going with him. That leaves her alone in their large family home. Two classmates immediately show concern, asking if it's really safe for a girl to stay alone in such a big house. Yumizuka answers calmly, saying she's already 15, an age that used to be considered old enough for marriage, and that her strict upbringing has taught her to be independent. Another classmate comments that her parents must trust her a lot because of how strong and reliable she seems. Tsuruoka listens quietly, thinking seriously about what he's just heard. He realizes her daily routine will definitely change without her parents around. But then he notices something. Her legs are trembling slightly under her desk. That small detail makes him uneasy. Despite her calm words, he begins to wonder if she's really okay. As the first period begins, the class settles down and everyone shifts their focus to the lesson. Time passes steadily through the third and then the fifth periods, and eventually, the school day comes to an end. By that time, Tsuruoka notices that Yumizuka looks visibly worn out, and the sight deepens his worry about her condition and how well she is truly coping. After classes, Yumizuka heads straight to the archery range for her usual practice. She shoots arrow after arrow, but none of them reach the target. Two girls nearby whisper quietly to each other, noting that she has not managed to hit even once and wondering with concern what might be wrong with her. The teacher soon approaches and asks Yumizuka about her condition. She responds quickly, insisting that she is fine and that nothing is wrong. Tsuruoka, hidden from view, watches the scene intently and thinks carefully about what he is seeing, realizing that the situation carries far more weight than it might first appear. Later, as Yumizuka leaves for home, Tsuruoka follows behind at a short distance. He calls out, asking if she will really be all right on her own. She turns back toward him and explains firmly that she is already grown, and as the only daughter of a respected martial arts family, she cannot allow herself to show weakness about being left alone at home. She insists that she is perfectly fine and tells him not to worry about her. Tsuruoka, however, continues to observe her closely and realizes that she is not being truthful. When he eventually returns home, he lies on his bed and begins to think deeply. No matter how worried he feels about Yumizuka, he cannot be by her side at that exact moment. He hopes earnestly that she is safe. Checking his phone, he suddenly remembers that he does not know her number. She never opens her phone at school, and he had forgotten to ask. Realizing that he has no way to contact her makes him even more uneasy and restless. Unable to remain at ease, he finally decides that he must go to her house. Since he had walked home with her before, he knows the way well enough. Still, he hesitates as he approaches, thinking it would be strange, and perhaps even improper, to intrude on her. Nearby, he notices two women chatting, and he becomes nervous that they might find him suspicious for standing there. While he listens, he hears them mention the sound of a girl screaming and something breaking inside the house. Alarmed by their words, Tsuruoka hurries to the door and knocks loudly, calling out urgently for Yumizuka. When she opens the door, he is relieved to see her standing there, yet she insists immediately that things are not fine and begs him not to let the neighbors see her in that state. The women nearby whisper with pity as they notice her distress. Yumizuka then pulls Shiruoka quickly inside and closes the door behind them. Inside the house, the room is in disarray. Shiruoka wonders if there had been some kind of break-in. He recalls what the neighbor said about hearing a scream and asks her about it, but Yumizuka appears flustered. Realizing the truth, he suspects that she had in fact been running away from an insect. She admits that she cannot handle such things, as their sudden movements unsettle her and leave her shaken. Shiruoka thinks about how even something so small can disturb her routine. He suggests that they go to a store so she can buy insect spray. As he prepares to leave, Yumizuka suddenly reaches out and holds onto his shirt. Surprised, he turns toward her. She quietly asks, almost pleading, if he will stay with her that night. After cleaning the house, they sit facing each other, both unsure of what to say. Shiruoka senses the awkwardness of the situation, lost in his thoughts about how to continue. Yumizuka eventually breaks the silence by thanking him. She admits that she would have been in trouble without his help. Shiruoka responds casually, pretending he only happened to be passing by, though inwardly he hides the fact that he can't admit he was near her house on purpose. When Yumizuka suggests that he stay a little longer, Shiruoka is caught off guard. The idea of spending the night at her house makes him uneasy, especially knowing how strict her family is. Yumizuka begins offering comfort, asking if he feels hot. She moves to turn on the air conditioner, preparing to bring tea, and suggests turning on the television. Shiruoka tries to politely decline, not wanting to trouble her, but before he can finish, she insists that he stay for at least 1 more hour. He hesitates, then chooses not to leave. Yumizuka heads to the shower, while he waits outside, caught in his thoughts. He reflects that anyone would be startled by a sudden cockroach, even a man, but his mind continues to wander. He wonders if staying the night might lead to something unexpected. Quickly, he pushes the thought away. He knows how much she values her routine and realizes that sudden closeness would be wrong. Trying to calm himself, he turns on the television, telling himself to just relax and pass the time. After a while, Shiruoka begins to observe the house more closely. Although Yumizuka is known at school as the daughter of a distinguished family, the house itself seems ordinary despite the large gate. It looks like a typical Japanese-style home. He feels as though he's getting a little closer to her, and the thought quietly pleases him. Meanwhile, she finishes her shower. Wrapped in a towel, she begins drying her hair with a hairdryer. On the other side of the house, Shiruoka starts to feel warm and moves to turn on the air conditioner. At the same time, both the hairdryer and air conditioner are running, causing the power to go out. The room goes dark, and Shiruoka realizes the breaker must have tripped. He guesses that it was too much for the old wiring. Unsure where the breaker is, he stops moving and waits, hoping it will reset on its own. In the darkness, he hears a faint voice calling his name. He responds instinctively, concerned if Yumizuka is all right. She answers shakily, and he senses she's near her limit. Unable to see, he moves toward her voice. Stepping forward, he accidentally grabs her arm, but quickly lets go. She pleads with him not to leave. Shiruoka scolds himself silently for being careless. He asks where the breaker is. Yumizuka says it's near the entrance, but she can't reach it alone. He tells her to guide him, and she directs him down the hall. They begin moving together, but he notices something pressing against him. Before he can figure it out, Yumizuka hears a sound and reacts with fear, thinking it might be a cockroach. Shiruoka focuses on calming her. She apologizes, admitting it's her first time being home alone. He understands how frightening it must be for her. Through her demeanor, she explains that as the daughter of the Yumizuka family, she feels she can't show weakness. Yet she has always relied on him. She wants to prove she can handle things herself, but now she's in trouble again. Her apology is soft and heavy. Shiruoka finally understands why Yumizuka has been acting strong. He realizes she's wrong to think she's a burden. Thinking back, he remembers times he caused her trouble, like during cooking class. He recalls how she once held his hand on their way home to calm him down. He realizes it's not just her. Everyone needs help sometimes. Placing a hand on her shoulder, he gently reassures her that this is what friendship is for. Afterward, Shiruoka falls silent, hoping she can't see his face in the dark. He's embarrassed by how impulsively he spoke and is glad the lights are still out. Yumizuka softly calls his name, but before more can be said, the lights suddenly return. Startled, she's now fully visible, still wrapped in a towel. Shiruoka quickly looks away, silently telling himself not to peek. He realizes the power came back on automatically. Later, when Yumizuka returns dressed, she expresses her gratitude. He replies nervously, trying to stay composed. Looking at her, he hesitates, then decides to ask for her contact details. He tells himself it's just in case she ever needs help, but also reminds himself it's okay if she doesn't want to share. She is a girl after all. To his surprise and relief, she takes his phone and types in her number. With a gentle gesture, she shows that she intends to rely on him and hopes he will rely on her too. Encouraged, Tsuruoka thinks about asking for her social media as well. When she mentions a term he doesn't recognize, he realizes he has no idea what SNS means. Tsuruoka reflects quietly that it's the first time he's ever prepared to message a girl. Unsure what to write, he resolves to send her a message as soon as possible. On Sunday, the dojo is quiet as it's a rest day. At 5 in the morning, Yumizuka begins her practice at the archery range. An hour later, she joins her family for breakfast. After the meal, she spends time on her studies, continuing until her father comes in at 10 to remind her about the afternoon training session at 3. When the afternoon arrives, she returns to the archery range for more practice. By 6 in the evening, she has dinner and then helps her mother with the dishes. Once the chores are finished, she sits down to watch television. Everyone is European. While the show is on, her phone rings. She answers and finds that it's Tsuruoka calling. He asks if she is doing well. She replies that she's fine and has just finished watching European. He then mentions that there's a part of the English homework he doesn't understand. Their conversation continues until 9 o'clock that night. Tsuruoka finds a quiet, hidden spot near the archery range and feels pleased with himself, thinking no one will disturb him there. As he settles in, believing he's secured a moment of peace, a girl approaches from behind and calls his name. She identifies him as a first-year student from Class 3. Introducing herself confidently as Mitoba Ryoko from Class 4, she firmly tells him to keep his distance from Yumizuka Iroha. Tsuruoka, startled, turns to face her, noticing Ryoko is quite short, but her presence is commanding. Trying to understand, he asks why she's saying this. Ryoko's tone remains sharp, stating he's been spending too much time with Iroha and questioning his suitability for her. She explains that Iroha is intelligent, has an admirable personality, comes from a family with a proud martial arts tradition, and is considered one of the most beautiful girls in their year. In contrast, she says Tsuruoka is unremarkable, just a boy from an ordinary family with average grades and appearance, lacking exceptional qualities. Embarrassed and cornered, Tsuruoka tries to defend himself, but Ryoko continues. She claims Iroha's academic and athletic performance has declined since Tsuruoka started interacting with her. She notes Iroha, once first in the entrance exams, now ranks second in midterms, and her archery accuracy has dropped since spring. Tsuruoka argues that second place is still impressive, but Ryoko cuts him off, insisting that for Iroha, only perfection is acceptable. With dramatic intensity, Ryoko declares Iroha is like a modern-day princess, wielding her bow with miraculous grace and strength, embodying beauty and power. She must remain at the top, untarnished. Ryoko warns Tsuruoka not to get too close to Iroha again. With that, she leaves, her words lingering heavily. Tsuruoka stands frustrated, wondering why she spoke with such intensity. As he walks away, Tsuruoka reflects on Ryoko's demand to stay away from Yumizuka, troubled but unwilling to comply. He runs into Yagami, who greets him cheerfully, breaking his brooding mood. Tsuruoka, remembering something, asks to speak with her. Yagami, surprised and slightly flustered, wonders if Tsuruoka has something important to say. They sit on steps outside a nearby house, and Tsuruoka asks about Mitoba Ryoko. Yagami explains that Ryoko, from Class 4, is the strict head of the Public Morals Committee, known for noticing small details like uniform violations. Yagami admits she's been warned by Ryoko about her hairstyle and accessories, which don't strictly follow school rules. Curious, Yagami asks if Tsuruoka has been warned too. He admits Ryoko cautioned him about spending time with Yumizuka. Yagami laughs, amused, but Tsuruoka grows serious, saying Ryoko treats Yumizuka like a goddess, which he finds unacceptable from a fellow student. Yagami suggests showing Ryoko the real Yumizuka to bring her back to reality. Tsuruoka thanks her, but Yagami, watching him, feels confused, wondering if he sees her only as a friend. She silently resolves to change that. The next day, Tsuruoka approaches Mitoba and asks if she's free. She responds cautiously, asking what he wants. Tsuruoka says he wants her to meet someone and brings her to Yumizuka. Seeing Yumizuka, Mitoba freezes in shock, her face stiffening. She turns to leave, but Tsuruoka, alarmed, asks her to wait. She refuses, telling him not to follow. When he insists, she bursts out, saying becoming familiar with Iroha would drag her down to Matoba's level. Tsuruoka explains he only wanted them to be friends, but Matoba rejects the idea, saying it's too ambitious. She insists Yumizuka is strong, beautiful, and flawless, out of reach. Mere admiration should suffice, as ordinary people like them are insignificant in comparison. Tsuruoka is stunned by her extreme idolization, especially when she calls herself a water flea. A crowd gathers, and Tsuruoka asks who they are. Matoba proudly explains they're the Yumizuka Iroha's unofficial fan club, dedicated to protecting her. Tsuruoka realizes their quiet, disciplined nature makes them less noticeable at the archery range. Spotting Nakayama among them, Tsuruoka feels betrayed and confronts him. Nakayama, uneasy, admits he warned Tsuruoka because he's not a suitable match for Yumizuka. Matoba reinforces this, saying Yumizuka is a national treasure, untouchable. She then accuses Nakayama of eating Yumizuka's cooking during class, deeming it unacceptable and demanding punishment. Nakayama tries to explain, but Matoba ignores him. Turning to Tsuruoka, she, as Yumizuka president, insists Yumizuka must maintain her exalted status. Tsuruoka protests, calling Yumizuka an ordinary girl and accusing Matoba and the fans of forcing unrealistic ideals on her without considering her as a person. Matoba retorts that he can't understand their feelings, privileged to sit next to Yumizuka while they remain strangers. Yumizuka arrives, asking if this is where Tsuruoka went. She approaches Matoba, recognizing her as Class 4's Matoba. Flustered, Matoba stammers and confirms. Tsuruoka notices the fan club members have quietly vanished. Yumizuka recalls they were both class representatives at the entrance ceremony. She tells Matoba she won't let her fall behind and suggests studying together. Tsuruoka reflects that Yumizuka's care for others is unexpected. Matoba, embarrassed, bows deeply, apologizing for raising her head in Iroha's presence. Yumizuka, puzzled, asks what's happening. Matoba insists she doesn't deserve Yumizuka's attention and shouldn't share her air, claiming she'll hold her breath. Alarmed, Tsuruoka rushes forward, worried she's fainted, while Yumizuka checks on her. Matoba weakly protests, saying she never meant to touch Aroa. Yumizuka approaches Tsuruoka and tells him about a joint archery practice session. She explains that several nearby schools will gather at their school's range, which is the ideal place for it. She also mentions that her father will attend as a coach. Hearing this, Tsuruoka is taken aback. He remembers the rumors about her father being strict and thinks to himself that he must meet him. At the same time, Matoba arrives, and he informs Yumizuka that he will head to the audience seats. Curious, he approaches Matoba and asks if she's there to watch. She replies confidently that it's her duty as president of the Yumizuka, Yumizuka's fan club. Just then, she spots a cameraman and sharply reminds him that flash photography is prohibited in the dojo, and even sunlight reflecting off a lens should be avoided. Tsuruoka notes this, and he praises her attentiveness. She answers that she is only doing it because it's important for Aroa-sama. Tsuruoka thinks quietly that staying close to Matoba might help him naturally find ways to familiarize her with Yumizuka. Matoba then suggests that they go together. As they are speaking, a boy and girl pass by, talking excitedly about Yumizuka. They remark on how impressive it is that, even as a first year, she has already become the ace. Matoba reacts passionately, declaring that Aroa-sama is like a final angel who has descended into the world, the pride of Imagahara High, and the one they call Yumi Hime. She shows the two students a magazine produced by the fan club, titled Yumi Hime Release. She explains that it will be published quarterly, and that the first issue includes basic information about Aroa. The two students are surprised and ask when such a thing was made. Matoba continues, explaining that the magazine even covers details such as her favorite tea, birthday, height, weight, and blood type. Shocked, Tsuruoka notes that Yumizuka has unintentionally been exposed. Matoba adds that the magazine also contains unconfirmed details, such as her fondness for the anime Eurapure, which aired during her childhood and therefore might be true. Hearing this, Tsuruoka suddenly calls out to stop Matoba, realizing that Yumizuka has been listening. When she turns back, he hesitantly points out that she might be thinking about the mention of Eurapure. Yumizuka calmly responds, saying that pure and lovely strength is all that matters. Startled, Tsuruoka mutters that this might be the end, but Yumizuka, keeping her composure, assures him that she is not upset at all. At the school's archery range, one of the boys points out that the man with the beard is the head of the well-known Yumizuka school. Tsuruoka looks at him in surprise and realizes it is Yumizuka's father. He thinks to himself that the man appears very strict and wonders if Yumizuka is managing well. His thoughts drift back to the European matter, reminding him that she often becomes uneasy when her family's honor is involved. Lost in his worries, he suddenly notices that it is Yumizuka's turn. She steps forward and gives her full effort, each arrow striking the target with precision. After the competition, Tsuruoka praises Yumizuka for her performance, telling her she was incredible and hit every shot. She thanks him and admits that she was especially driven that day. Tsuruoka thinks to himself that even under pressure, she can still perform at such a high level, and he finds her truly impressive. Suddenly, Yumizuka begins to lose her balance, and Tsuruoka quickly catches her. She tells him that she feels a little dizzy. Holding her, he realizes that she has a fever and has been pushing herself too hard. He urges her to hold on and suggests taking her to the infirmary, but then hesitates, worried about handling the situation alone. Spotting Matoba, he calls out to her for help. Matoba reacts nervously, saying that touching Aroa directly is difficult for her. Tsuruoka insists, telling her to call some of the girls over if needed and pointing out that this is not the time for hesitation. Surprised by his words, Matoba finally agrees. Together, they take Yumizuka to the infirmary. Once Yumizuka starts feeling better, she thanks Tsuruoka, saying she's much improved. Matoba feels a bit overlooked. She helped too, but wasn't acknowledged. As she's stewing over it, Yumizuka suddenly calls her over, and Tsuruoka gently nudges her forward. Yumizuka thanks her sincerely, saying that if Matoba ever needs support, she can count on her, because that's what friends are for. She offers her hand, and Matoba takes it, smiling in agreement. As Matoba leaves the infirmary and walks through the corridor, Tsuruoka calls out to stop her. He thanks her for her help. She quickly responds that if it is for Aroa-sama, of course she will do it, but admits that not realizing Aroa was unwell feels shameful to her. Tsuruoka looks a little confused, then tells her that once he got to know Yumizuka, he began to notice different sides of her. He recalls that at first, he was the same, only watching her from a distance, and finds it unbelievable that he used to see her only that way. He points out that it is probably because Matoba always views her from afar. Surprised by his words, he adds that it feels like such a waste. Embarrassed, Matoba asks if he is not ashamed to say such things. Tsuruoka quickly retorts that it is none of her concern. The next day at school, Tsuruoka stands quietly, thinking to himself that the archery club has no practice today. He decides that he cannot lose to Matoba's interference and must take the next step. Just then, Yumizuka passes by, and he calls out to her, asking if she would like to go home together. Yumizuka responds that she has already promised to go home with Matoba. Taken aback, Tsuruoka quickly replies that it is nothing. Later he learns that the fan club, Yumi Hime Kai, held a meeting. Matoba explains that they concluded she would act as Iroha's school buddy. She also says they decided to discontinue the fan magazine and stop gathering personal information without permission. As her duty, she believes it is not right to reveal private details, and she admits that she once suspected Tsuruoka of having hidden motives for being close to Aroa, but that she was mistaken and apologizes for the misunderstanding. When Tsuruoka begins to speak her name, she interrupts, declaring that she will never allow a romantic relationship between him and Aroa, and warns him to be careful. After that, she turns to Yumizuka and tells her it is time to leave. Yumizuka responds with a simple okay, and the two walk off together. During an afternoon break, the classroom fills with the usual chatter of lunchtime. Tsuruoka unwraps his meal and notices Yumizuka nearby. Normally, her lunchbox is large and neatly prepared, but today she opens a small package from the convenience store. Curious, he asks her about it, and she explains that the household caretaker suddenly fell ill. Hearing this, he grows concerned. She had already been at training earlier that morning. Would such a small meal really be enough for her? When the break ends and lessons resume, Tsuruoka still finds himself distracted by the thought. In the middle of class, a faint sound breaks the silence, catching the attention of several students. Some whisper, wondering whose stomach it was. Others joke that it must belong to one of the sports club boys. Gradually, however, the conversation shifts, and the classmates don't suspect Yumizuka. Voices overlap as everyone denies responsibility. Tsuruoka grows uneasy. So far, no one has pointed directly at her, but if the noise happens again, she will have no way to hide it. He imagines how unbearable that would be for her, someone from such a well-regarded family being embarrassed over something so small. Her usual routine has already been disrupted, and to be noticed like this would make it worse. Determined to protect her, he searches for a way to shield her. Ideas run through his mind, calling out suddenly to draw attention to himself, creating some kind of distraction, but none seem reliable. If her stomach growls again, she could be exposed instantly. While he struggles to think of an answer, the whispers continue, and he notices her expression tightening as if she is close to her limit. Then, without warning, a sharp noise echoes through the classroom. The room erupts in confusion as students react all at once. Some shout about a giant monster, others suggest an airplane, or even a falling meteor. A few yell that it must be an earthquake. Laughter and nervous comments ripple across the room. Tsuruoka realizes that it might be another one of Yumizuka's recoveries. The teacher quickly raises his voice and orders the class to take cover, instructing everyone to get beneath their desks, and leaves for the staff room for more info. Chairs scrape and students crouch under the tables. Amid the commotion, Tsuruoka notices an opening. While the others remain under their desks, he slips to the seat beside Yumizuka. From his bag, he pulls out a small bottle he had bought earlier at the school shop, a jelly-style fruit drink, and quietly offers it to her. He tells her that with this, she should be able to avoid further attention. She accepts it and thanks him softly. He finds this expression of hers also cute. As Tsuruoka walks through the school corridor, he notices Yumizuka ahead of him. She has been selected for the upcoming school broadcast, where first-year students will be interviewed about their experiences in high school. Representing her year, she carries not only the responsibility of her classmates, but also the honor of her family. Tsuruoka is not surprised by her selection. In his thoughts, he recognizes that no one upholds such strong principles as Yumizuka. Even so, a sense of unease stirs within him. Yumizuka herself reflects that she must give her best effort for the sake of everyone and in respect of her family's name. At that moment, she notices Yagami approaching. Yagami Erika has also been chosen for the broadcast, making it a shared responsibility between the two of them. The realization leaves Yumizuka momentarily taken aback. Yagami Erika, daughter of a globally influential family, is admired across the school. Half Japanese and recently returned from Hawaii, she carries the aura of a celebrity. In the archery club, Yumizuka Iroha is the respected ace, known for her skill and heritage in traditional archery. Students call her the Bow Princess of Amaku for her grace and talent. Yagami, meanwhile, reigns as queen of her class, striking, athletic, brilliant, and naturally charismatic. Now, with both Yumizuka and Yagami chosen as school representatives, the upcoming broadcast brings together two icons of elegance, prestige, and influence at Amagahara High. Inside the broadcast room, two boys discuss the program. One points out that the two most admired girls of the first year have been selected. The other admits that the broadcast about student life is only a cover to pass teacher approval. The real intention is to feature the most popular girls of their year and share details about them with the audience. The first boy glances at his partner and notices from his expression that he is entertaining questionable thoughts. 3 months have passed since the entrance ceremony, and the first-year students are beginning to settle into high school life. On this day, two of them are invited to share their thoughts. In the classroom, students watch as Yumizuka Iroha and Yagami Erika are introduced. Tsuruoka worries about Yumizuka. Although she insists there is no problem since the questions were given in advance, he fears that if she becomes flustered, her hidden side will be revealed to the entire school. The program shifts to a question about activities outside academics. Yumizuka explains that, as a member of the archery club, she has achieved strong results through the school's training and equipment. Unlike practicing at her family's dojo, she finds it valuable to train alongside peers her own age. The next question is directed to Yagami. Asked about being considered the central figure of her class, she explains that her closeness with everyone naturally placed her in that position. While academics are important, she emphasizes that creating memories with friends is an equally significant part of high school. Hearing this, Nakayama praises her, and another classmate agrees in admiration. In the third and fourth classrooms, Matoba reacts with disappointment that the session is nearing its conclusion. Meanwhile, Tsuruoka feels relieved, believing that Yumizuka will manage without problems. However, the broadcast staff announce a final segment, a surprise question corner, asking both girls if there is someone they like. The classroom reacts with excitement, eager for this unexpected turn. The announcer declares that the session cannot end until the question is answered, urging the participants to respond. Tsuruoka immediately realizes this was not part of Yumizuka's prepared plan. Uneasy, he senses it may place her in a difficult position. Yagami is asked first. To everyone's surprise, she admits there is someone she likes. The class reacts in shock, unable to contain their excitement, and demand to know who it is. She avoids giving a direct answer, instead saying it could be anyone listening to the broadcast. The matter is left open-ended, and the boys cheer loudly, praising her in admiration. Tsuruoka rushes toward the broadcast room, reflecting on Yagami's ability to handle such situations. He notes that she has always maintained her image by taking advantage of the impressions others already have of her, and that this kind of improvisation suits her perfectly. By the time he arrives, the next question is already directed to Yumizuka. When asked if she has someone she likes, Yumizuka freezes. Unable to respond, she fumbles over her words. Tsuruoka realizes he has to help, but laments that he is too late. He enters the broadcast room, but the staff tries to hold him back. Ignoring them, he believes that Yumizuka's secret is out. At that moment, one of the managers announces a microphone problem and halts the broadcast to check the equipment. Another confirms the issue, and the listeners are told that technical difficulties have interrupted the program. Outside, students speculate that the broadcasting club is facing issues, assuming it is only a system fault. Relieved, Tsuruoka breathes out, thankful they believe it to be an equipment malfunction. Yet he knows the trouble will return once the system is restored. He quickly picks up a notebook and pen, writing down a response for Yumizuka. He shows her the message, that she is currently enjoying her time with club activities and studies, and has not thought much about love. Yumizuka repeats the response. The listeners react with approval, remarking that such discipline is also part of her appeal. They note that even in her personal life, she holds herself to high standards. The broadcast ends with words of gratitude to the two guests, concluding the interview with the first-year representatives. Later, as Tsuruoka leaves, he muses that they managed to mislead the broadcasting club and wonders if Yagami will notice that anything unusual happened. From behind, Yagami calls out to him. Bringing up the broadcast, she clarifies her earlier words. While she said what she did on air, she explains her closeness to him is not something she would feel with just anyone. She asks that he not misunderstand. Tsuruoka considers her words and realizes this was why she stopped him. He responds that he already understands everything about her. Hearing this, Yagami becomes excited, repeating his statement with delight. Tsuruoka, in turn, is left surprised by her reaction. The teacher announces that today's activity is a swimming session for classes 3 and 4. To help everyone adjust to the water, the beginning is set aside as free time. Excited, the students prepare to enter the pool. Tsuruoka sees this as a rare chance to enjoy the school pool and quietly hopes he might spend some time near Yumizuka. As he thinks this, Nakayama approaches and teases him about staring at swimsuits, noticing where Tsuruoka's eyes seem to wander. Embarrassed, Tsuruoka denies it, but before he can explain, Matoba steps in. She accuses him of looking at Yumizuka inappropriately and declares she won't allow such behavior. Taking charge, Matoba insists the pool be divided by gender so Yumizuka will be safe from the boys' stares. Some boys protest, calling it unfair, while many girls support her, agreeing the boys cannot be trusted. Matoba firmly directs Yumizuka to the girls' side, making it clear she intends to keep Tsuruoka from seeing her in a swimsuit. Once the pool is divided, the students begin playing in the water. Nakayama sneaks up to Tsuruoka with the idea of heading toward the girls' side. Tsuruoka hesitates, worried about what might happen if they were caught. Nakayama argues no one would notice, and even if they did, he could claim to have lost his way while swimming. He insists it's a rare chance worth taking, even if it breaks the rules. Tsuruoka refuses, thinking Yumizuka would dislike him if she ever found out. Ignoring his concern, Nakayama dives under the water. When he resurfaces on the other side, he catches a glimpse of a girl's thigh beneath the surface. Overcome with excitement, he shouts out loud, drawing everyone's attention. Flustered, he quickly claims he had only lost his way. The girls glare at him, and Yumizuka argues with Matoba over his behavior. Furious, Matoba orders him to leave the pool immediately. Watching from a distance, Tsuruoka wonders in silence whether Nakayama will be all right after such recklessness. Amid the commotion, Tsuruoka suddenly feels his leg cramp. Struggling to stay afloat, he tries to call for help, but no one notices. All eyes remain fixed on Nakayama, and Tsuruoka begins to sink, panic rising as his strength fades. At that moment, Yumizuka appears by his side. She takes hold of him, supports his body, and brings him back to the surface. Weakly, Tsuruoka protests that she shouldn't be there since it's the boy's side, but she pulls him firmly toward safety. At the edge, students rush over, asking if he is all right. Yumizuka helps him out of the water and makes sure he lies down to recover. Once he calms, she sits beside him and offers a drink. Relieved, Tsuruoka thanks her, surprised by her strength despite her small frame. She explains that her family is known for its martial arts expertise, and she has trained in swimming techniques while wearing armor. Impressed, Tsuruoka praises her and admits he's surprised she noticed his struggle while everyone else was distracted. After a pause, Yumizuka shyly confesses she'd been watching him all along. When he does not hear, blaming water in his ears, her composure slips and she snaps at him in frustration. A few days before summer break, the students gather around the notice board to check the final exam schedule. Tsuruoka is among them, and as he scans the list, he realizes that mathematics is scheduled for the very first day. The thought unsettles him since it is not his strongest subject, and he resolves to prepare more seriously. Noticing his unease, Yumizuka offers her support and suggests they study together after school in a classroom. Tsuruoka accepts her offer, grateful for her willingness to help. Nearby, Matoba overhears their exchange. The idea of the two of them studying alone troubles her, and she begins to think about how she might prevent it. When the school day ends, Tsuruoka and Yumizuka head to the classroom as planned. However, they find it still filled with students. Some are absorbed in playing games on their phones, their excited voices filling the room. Tsuruoka quickly realizes that it will be difficult to focus in such an environment. Seeing this, Yumizuka leads the way to the self-study room instead. Yet even there, they are met with a large crowd of students preparing for the upcoming exams. With no better option, they decide to make do with the space available and continue with their plan to study together. All the while, Matoba secretly observes them. Determined to stop the session, she recalls that her agents had already been placed in both the classroom and the self-study room. When Tsuruoka realizes that neither place offers any peace, he begins to consider going to a diner or fast food restaurant. Matoba, recognizing the change, quickly shifts to another plan. As they leave the self-study room, a girl approaches Matoba and suggests heading to a family restaurant instead. Matoba hesitates. Yumizuka, however, remains firm. She cannot accept the idea of occupying space in a busy restaurant during evening hours when customers begin to arrive. To her, such behavior would be inappropriate. Tsuruoka then thinks of abandoning the session altogether, but Yumizuka refuses. In her view, preparing for exams is the duty of a student, and postponing it is not an option. Faced with this, Tsuruoka is uncertain what to do next, but Yumizuka insists they must keep searching, convinced that a suitable place must exist. In the end, they decide to go to Tsuruoka's house. He shows her his room and brings her juice. Yumizuka feels confident that they will be able to concentrate fully there, while Tsuruoka grows uneasy, wondering if this situation is truly appropriate. He recalls that when Yumizuka becomes deeply focused, she tends to lose awareness of everything else around her. They begin their study session. Tsuruoka reassures himself that since Yumizuka chose this herself, it should be fine, though he silently hopes nothing goes wrong. She then checks on his difficulties and asks him to show where he struggles. He admits that he is unsure how to apply a particular equation. After taking a moment, Yumizuka moves closer to explain. She shows him that the problem is easier to understand from another angle. The closeness distracts Tsuruoka, leaving him unable to concentrate on her explanation. Still, she continues step by step, guiding him to connect the problem with the formula introduced earlier. Tsuruoka becomes flustered and asks her to repeat the explanation. Yumizuka reminds him that unless he concentrates, he will not be able to learn. He admits that it is hard for him to focus because it is the first time a girl has ever entered his room. They sit so near that their arms touch. She now understands the situation. She then reflects that this is also her first time entering a boy's room, and the thought makes her uneasy. As the daughter of the Yumizuka family, she begins to question whether her behavior is proper. Tsuruoka, seeing her distress, tries to reassure her that they are only there to study. Even so, he fears the session may fall apart if they remain unsettled. He recalls the previous time when he lost composure, and Yumizuka calmed him by holding his hand. Now, with her beginning to panic, Tsuruoka takes her hand to steady her. At first, Yumizuka is startled, but gradually she relaxes and accepts his reassurance. She feels at ease once more. He reflects inwardly, surprised by her reaction. She zooms away from him. She then warns him that no one must ever hear about what happened during their study session. Soroka agrees, and afterward they both return to studying seriously, though he struggles to retain much of the material. The next day, the exam takes place. When the graded papers are returned, Soroka is astonished to see his result. It is the best score he has ever achieved in mathematics, and he realizes that the session may not have been wasted after all. Pleased with his performance, he goes to Yumizuka to show her his paper, but she avoids responding. Confused, he wonders if he has done something to upset her. At the same time, Yumizuka feels uneasy, unable to meet his eyes. Final exams come to an end, and the students welcome the start of summer vacation. Before the break begins, one important event awaits them, the school trip. The students board the buses assigned to their classes, and the seating is arranged according to their names. Soroka and Yumizuka find themselves in an atmosphere that feels slightly uncomfortable. Yagami sits on the bus, considering how occasions like this often allow boys and girls to grow closer. She decides that this trip will be her chance to draw Soroka's attention. As she looks around to find him, her gaze instead falls on Yumizuka. Curious, she resolves to learn more and approaches her. Yumizuka greets her but radiates a tense aura that surprises Yagami. In their exchange, Yagami realizes that Yumizuka has been unable to interact naturally with Soroka, even though they were not so distant in the past. Yumizuka reflects quietly, sensing that these changes may mean she has begun to see Soroka in a new light, perhaps as more than a friend. Meanwhile, Yagami recalls rumors that Matoba Ryuka has been interfering with interactions between male and female students under the guise of strict morals. Yagami views this as an obstacle, but also believes it gives her an opportunity. Determined, she tells herself that she will make progress with Soroka during this trip. On the other side, Yumizuka worries about what might happen if Soroka begins to dislike her. She has always thought of him as her closest companion, and the unease within her feels unfamiliar, almost protective. Despite her uncertainty, she does not wish to leave him alone. Yagami, observing Yumizuka's unease, reassures her in her own way. Yumizuka responds with gratitude, touched by the unexpected kindness. She admits to herself that she may have misjudged Yagami before and now sees her differently. Yagami, though pleased by the moment of connection, reminds herself that Yumizuka is still a rival. With this thought, she turns her attention back to her own goal, ready to act during the trip. Meanwhile, Soroka sits alone, recalling how he confessed to Yumizuka when they first met, then chose to become her friend step by step. Even so, he feels the distance between them has not lessened. Remembering Matoba's words, he doubts if he is truly a match for her. Yumizuka stands admired by many, while he sees himself far lower. He thinks of the exams, where his below-average grades were revealed, and realizes he has not shown any strength that could impress her. As he dwells on this, Yagami approaches and greets him with ease. But he also carries a heavy atmosphere. She sits beside him and brings up the dormitory where the students are expected to stay during the trip, mentioning the large bath that will be available. Soroka responds without enthusiasm, giving a plain answer that makes the mood feel awkward. Seeing his indifferent reaction, Yagami begins to rise as if to leave, but Soroka quickly calls out to her. He admits in his own way that he is not especially interesting or entertaining. Yagami stops, agreeing with his words, and then lists several faults she sees in him. She points out his lack of charm, his inability to hold good conversations, and his ordinary appearance. After criticizing him, she adds calmly that his willingness to devote himself to someone can also be seen as a strength. Soroka, caught between her sharp words and sudden shift, is left uncertain. Yagami continues, saying she has heard about his situation with Yumizuka and questions whether his feelings for her are as serious as he believes. She suggests that what he feels may be nothing more than admiration for someone he places on a pedestal. Soroka reflects inwardly, admitting that in the beginning his feelings for Yumizuka may have been more like admiration from afar. Yet, as he spent time speaking with her directly, he realized that behind her image of perfection, she was simply an ordinary girl. From then on, his wish has been to support her in any way possible. With conviction, he affirms to himself that this is the one feeling he will never yield on, then shouts that his love for her is genuine. Only after speaking does he notice that many students have turned their attention toward him. Embarrassed, he questions himself, stunned that he let those words out in public. Yagami steps closer, taps his nose, and says she knows, leaving him startled. She scolds herself for being naive. In the crowd, Yumizuka is also present, and Yami wonders if she might have overheard.
Here I am,